Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
NH Pop says, my 4.5-year-old ASD son is making progress, especially with cognition and language, but still struggles with attention. He often gets stuck in his own mind, thinking about things or whispering under his breath, and doesn't tune in. When he does tune in, he can answer questions including how and why, and do simple math reading, and talks mostly in full sentence with decent grammar. But he doesn't really stim other than a little vocal stimming. So I think he needs this in his head time to decompress, but he also needs to pay attention for school. Will this improve in time, and how do I help? It's a great question.
It's a great question. It's a fabulous question. I wish I knew your son, because an observation of this behavior would really help me. There's two thoughts that come to mind. One is, well, there's actually three thoughts that come to mind. The first is, maybe you're right. Maybe he does need, sometimes, maybe he does need a little bit of, just kind of thinking things through, or he just needs to slow down and then come back. That's a possibility. My initial two thoughts, one was that he needs more time to process. That's the first thought I had, which sometimes our kids do have a longer processing time. If it was my child, I would find a psychologist or neuropsychologist, and I would have them administer a test called the NEPSY. NEPSYE is spelled in a weird way. And this test, one of the subtests of the NEPSY is processing speed. And you'll learn very much about how fast he is processing information. Sometimes it takes, I gotta go back and talk about this for a minute, which is, we learn things over the course of a lifetime, very long period of time, right? Year one, we learn certain things. Year two, we learn certain things. And so we have time to categorize these. Think of your brain as kind of a library system. And so, the first things that you learn are your needs, and they go into spots in your thinking, your mind. And then the second thing is just like labels of objects. And then those are classified, and then functions of objects, and those are classified. And so when you go back and you want to retrieve information, you can do it a lot faster because things are organized in a certain way, kind of like a library system. But our kids, they learn things super rapidly because we're piling on this kind of ABA and tutoring and speech, everything, right? And so when they learn everything in a condensed period of time, sometimes they don't really have the time yet to classify things the way they should. So it's kind of like a child might be able to retrieve, the thing that I sit at school is a desk, but they won't retrieve, the thing that, holds my books is a desk. Do you know what I mean? So some aspects of what they've learned haven't been classified yet. So they might take a longer period of time to process, which is totally fine. And he will catch up with that. That will catch up because he sounds like he's learning very, very rapidly. Now, the other thought I had was I would actually see a psychologist. I mean, the NEPSY will also help with this, but maybe figure out if he also has ADHD. Sometimes our kids have dual diagnosis, and they have a lot of difficulty attending to one stimulus. ADHD is a little bit different than just kind of inability to pay attention in autism. And the difference is kind of interesting and subtle. Someone who's a good diagnostician can see the difference. With kids who have ADHD, they their speed their speed in their head is so fast that they miss some stimuli that are going on around them. It's different than receiving the stimuli and taking time to process it. They miss the stimuli because they're just processing so fast. They're going so fast. And you can see this with kids with ADHD. It's when you slow them down, they start to see a lot more of what's going on around them, and they process faster and they answer faster. It's an ongoing thing. If a child has ADHD on top of the autism, it will be a lifelong process for them to teach themselves to slow down and pay attention. And of course, the other alternative, if your child actually does have some symptoms of ADHD, is medication for ADHD. Medication for ADHD, and a lot of parents don't really like the medication for ADHD, but some parents have found that it is a lifesaver. And so I'm open to everything. And that's another suggestion, is to talk to a psychologist who specializes in, childhood mental disorders, I guess, which include ADHD, include autism, and they can do some testing and help you figure this out. I'm not worried about it because he's learning so fast. But the other side of it is, because he's learning so fast, you kind of want to give him every resource and every tool. So it would be good to do this testing, because maybe there is some way that you can make things even easier for him, which is always what we're hoping to do.
There we go. They further wrote in and said, I think he may have some slow processing speed, but the reason I don't think that is all of it is sometimes he answers pretty quick, and other times when he's tuned out, it's very slow or not at all. And they said, so it's sort of all or nothing. But help me, Dr. Grandpichet, because I'm surrounded by a lot of creative people, and they get in that zone when they're being creative. And sometimes they're in a zone where they've completely tuned everyone and everything else because they're so focused on what they're doing. And then other times they're very focused on what they're doing, but they are capable of taking in everything that's going on. Same person. Yeah. I don't really completely understand that.
Yeah.
But I know that sometimes our kids are figuring out still at this point how to process those things.
I don't know that. Okay, so I'll talk about that for a minute and see if you agree, Shannon. My feeling is that all of us have some strengths internally in our minds, right? Like a creative artist, for instance, sees things differently. And when they're in that zone, you got to call them a couple of times to get them out of that zone to pay attention. And the same would be said of, like brilliant musicians or even someone, who's very, very good at, let's say, Excel worksheets, or very good at problem solving, or even someone who is really involved in carpentry, or whenever we're very focused on something, it's a very common thing for us to block out other stimuli because we've learned to do that. Because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to focus. I mean, so that's a very clear thing. I guess for me, it goes back to what I always say, is that there's no problem with that as long as you are functioning well.
There we go.
That's it. There's a problem if it starts to affect your classwork, if it starts to affect your personal relationship, if it starts to affect your work. And Shannon, that's one of the things I really love about the diagnostic manual, is that it starts with that premise. We're all different and we all have strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes we focus on things and you have a harder time focusing. Like, there's all these things, right? We all have differences in our brains. it's not a problem unless it starts to affect some aspect of life. If it's a child, you're looking at the social relationships with the family as well as school. If those things are affected, then it's a problem. When it's an adult, we're talking at functioning in your home life again, family, friends, and work. And if all of those are fine, I mean, I always give the example of alcohol dependency. You know, there are a lot of people that drink a ton of alcohol, but they have very, very functional lives and you'd never know it. You know, they're responsible people and their family loves them. They're great at work and it's totally fine. They have high redox. Good luck to them, you know. But the issue is, it's not, if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. For our kids, it is usually a problem because we're trying to catch them up too, right? They're trying to learn faster than the typical child even. And so we want to give them every possible means of being able to attend and multitask. You know, there's a very interesting test that is done with kids with autism, other kids as well. It's called Stroop. And this test is fascinating because it highlights one of the issues that we see with a lot of our kids with autism. And actually, you see this with lots of people, not just kids with autism, and you guys can test this yourselves. The test is done in multiple different ways, but for example, take a piece of paper and write in different spots, just all over the page, write the numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, you know, spread out. And then do the same thing on that same paper, do it with the alphabet and do like A, B, C, D, E, like that, right? All the way through. And then test yourself and test someone else, time it. And your goal is to go from 1 to A, to 2, to B, to 3, C, and so on, 4, D, etc. And you draw a line, 1 to A, to like that, all through until you're done, right? And you'll see that your processing speed is quite different from anyone else's. Everybody has a different processing speed. That's one way of measuring it. Another thing, another test that is really good at, that's called set shifting. And we do have difficulty in autism. A lot of people have difficulty with set shifting. That's kind of like when, you know, they're focused on the TV and mom is calling them. They have a hard time focusing, stopping, focusing, and then coming back. That's shifting a cognitive set. Other types of brain activities, that's why I love the NEPSI so much, because these things come out in testing, is a test where you basically will have things written, like the names of colors written in different colors. So the word blue is written in red, and the word yellow is written in blue, that sort of thing. And then I tell me what you read. And then I tell me what color you see. And these are extremely confusing things for people. And some people are very, very fast at it, and and it takes a very hard time for others. And that is the ability to actually separate two stimuli, two features of something when one is more prominent than the other. And so those types of activities, by the way, are just helpful in trying to get processing speed to increase. But, you know, before you want to go there, you just want to do a test and find out if that is even the issue or not.
They want to know what the name of the test was again, Dr. Grampy-Shea.
Stroop, Stroop.
And a lot of those tests, they do them now on those apps that are like Brain Age. Traven was mentioning that there's one on TikTok. They're pretty out there all over the place, but very good. I want to say Michelle Clemens, who wrote, quick question, but how does Dr. Doreen look like she's in her 20s? ? I know. I ask that every week, Michelle. Yes,
You're very kind, Michelle. Shannon, we have to share that last week on, I don't know, Thursday or something, Wednesday or Thursday, I was moving a box from my bookshelf, and I have a very, very big bookshelf in my main living room. And on the top of the box was a little statuette of one of my dogs that has passed away. And this thing is made of concrete, right? And it fell on my face. I mean, you saw the pictures from like 3 days ago. I'm still very numb right here and I have a lot of makeup on, but it was a pretty horrendous experience. So thank you for that, Michelle, because I had to put a lot of extra gunk on my face today.
You just look a little bee stung, which is very popular here in LA. You look good. Yes. No, we're all asking that question, Michelle. How I have a theory that working with children keeps you young, because if you look at the therapists, they all look really young too. So there you go. And I think doing what you love helps you to stay looking younger. So let's all try to do that. Work with children and do what we love.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time on autism-network.com. We hope to see you there.